On the night of the first falling star, something very unusual happened. It was seen early in the morning, moving quickly over Winchester towards the east, appearing as a bright streak in the sky. Many people saw it, but thought it was just a regular falling star. Some even reported that it left a greenish trail that glowed for a few seconds. An expert on meteors, Denning, estimated that it was around 90 or 100 miles high when it first appeared, and he believed it fell to Earth about 100 miles east of where he was. I was at home at that time, writing in my study with the French windows open facing Ottershaw. However, I did not see anything as I was not looking up at the sky at that moment. It's remarkable to think that this extraordinary event occurred while I was there, and I could have seen it if I had looked up. Some people who witnessed it said they heard a hissing sound as it flew by, but I did not hear anything. Many people in Berkshire, Surrey, and Middlesex likely saw the falling star as well, but they probably thought it was just another meteorite. No one seemed to have tried to find the fallen object that night. Early in the morning, Ogilvy woke up with the idea of finding the meteorite that he had seen shooting across the sky. He was convinced that it had landed somewhere on the common area between Horsell, Ottershaw, and Woking. After getting up early, he quickly found the meteorite not far from the sand pits shortly after dawn. The impact of the projectile had created an enormous hole, and the sand and gravel had been thrown in every direction over the heath, forming heaps that were visible from a mile and a half away. The heather to the east was on fire, and a thin blue smoke rose up against the dawn. The thing was mostly buried in the sand, surrounded by broken pieces of a fir tree that it had destroyed during its fall. The uncovered part of it appeared to be a large cylinder that was covered in a thick, scaly, dun-colored layer. Its diameter was around 30 yards, which surprised him because most meteorites are more round in shape. However, it was too hot to get close to as it was still radiating heat from its journey through the atmosphere. He heard a stirring noise coming from inside the cylinder, which he thought was due to the uneven cooling of its surface. He had not yet realized that it could be hollow. He stood at the edge of the pit that the thing had created, gazing at its strange appearance. He was amazed at its unusual shape and color and could sense that there was some kind of plan behind its arrival. The early morning was quiet, with no breeze or birds chirping. The only sounds came from within the ashy cylinder. He was completely alone on the common as he observed this fascinating phenomenon. One night, a shooting star was seen in the sky over Winchester, and many people observed it, thinking it was an ordinary falling star. However, Albin noticed that it left behind a greenish streak that glowed for a few seconds. Denning, an expert on meteorites, estimated that it had a height of around 90 to 100 miles when it first appeared, and he believed it fell to the ground about 100 miles east of him. Although the meteorite fell close to the protagonist's home, they did not see it as they were inside writing at the time. Some people reported hearing a hissing sound as the meteorite passed. The next morning, Ogilvy, who had seen the shooting star, went out early to look for it and found a massive hole in the ground with sand and gravel scattered in every direction. The thing, almost entirely buried in the sand, was a huge cylinder with a scaly dun-colored incrustation, about 30 yards in diameter, and was hot to the touch, which prevented Ogilvy from getting too close to it. Ogilvy saw the circular top of the cylinder slowly rotating, and to his shock, he realized that it was artificial and hollow with an end that could screw out. He heard a muffled grating sound and saw a black mark jerk forward an inch. And suddenly he realized that there were men inside the cylinder who were half roasted to death and trying to escape. With a quick mental leap, he linked the thing to the flash on Mars. Henderson and Ogilvy approached the cylinder cautiously, and Henderson tried to communicate with whoever might be inside using a series of hand signals. When they received no response, they decided to unscrew the top of the cylinder themselves. As they worked to loosen it, they heard a loud, wailing noise coming from within the cylinder, which caused them to pause in fear. However, they soon realized that the sound was the hissing of steam as it escaped from the cylinder's interior. After removing the top, they peered inside and saw a small, gray creature with a large head and large, dark eyes staring back at them. The creature moved with a fluid grace and had an air of intelligence about it that unnerved the men. Suddenly, it began to move more quickly and with greater purpose, and the two men retreated in fear as it emerged from the cylinder and began to explore its new surroundings. Over the next few days, the Martian invasion of Earth began in earnest, as more and more cylinders landed and strange, terrifying machines emerged to wreak havoc on the people and cities of the world. The narrator, who had witnessed many of these events firsthand, chronicled the chaos and destruction that followed in his journal as he struggled to survive in a world that had been forever changed by the arrival of the Martians. They stopped and listened, tapping on the bumpy burned metal with a stick, but nobody answered them. We thought the people inside the cylinder must be hurt or dead. We couldn't help them. We tried to comfort and encourage them, then we ran back to the town to get help. Covered in sand, we were excited and disorganized. We dashed up the street as the shops were opening for the day. Henderson went to the train station right away to send a message to London. The newspaper stories had already told people what to expect. By 8 o'clock, some boys and men who didn't have jobs had already set out to the common to see the dead men from Mars. That's how people were describing it. I learned about it first from the boy who delivers my newspaper, just before 9 o'clock. I was really surprised, and I went straight across the Ottershaw Bridge to the sand pits.